Welcome to Remember When. Today we're talking to Mr. Morris Lowry, who remembers when he didn't have electricity.
My full name is Morris Calcutt Lowry. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, where my father was pastoring at that time. My parents were missionaries to Burma, it's called in those days. And we sailed from Seattle when I was about 3 months old. And my father died of confluent smallpox. And so my mother, my sister, and I got back to Keene in the winter of 1919-20, before I was 4 in the spring. So most of my life has been spent at Keene, in and out, of course, going to school and working one thing and another, but the majority of the time my life has been lived at Keene. And I'll be 97 on the 28th of May. So I've seen a lot of changes in that town.
Let's listen in as Mr. Lowry tells us about his childhood without electricity.
Where I grew up, we didn't have electricity in the house, and we didn't have electricity in the house until I'd gone to Pacific Union College at Angwin, California, in the fall of 1936.
No video games, no internet, no electricity 97 years ago. Sounds boring, you say? We'll find out next on Remember When.
Well, there were two sports that I enjoyed very much, baseball and basketball. At the school, it wasn't organized. You just had to, fellas got together and played and so forth and so on.
I'm sure he didn't just sit in the dark. Let's find out what he used for light.
Well, most of the time we had natural gas. So we had lamps in the house that had these little mantles that you burned, and so after they burned up, then they were ready for use, and they were just very fragile. So we had those overhead lamps with those mantles on them, and that was for lighting, and then we had gas stoves for heating.
With electricity came something we're all familiar with, the screen.
We didn't have a radio, and we certainly didn't have TV, and incidentally, one summer I spent some part of the summer over in Memphis, Tennessee, where my uncles had a cookie shop. And one uncle, O.H. Calcutt, took some of us up to a World's Fair at Chicago. And this would be along in the early 1930s. And in one exhibit we went to, there was demonstrating the early stage of the TV. And I volunteered to go up and be a participant in this display of this TV. As I recall, one of them sat in a chair and they asked me a question or so, and then I guess just must have showed my picture on this TV so that people could see it. I don't remember all of it, but it was a primitive stage, of course, for the TV.
And now for a few shocking experiences.
Seemed like one time I thoughtlessly cut an electric wire with pliers or something in it, and another time pulled some electric wires loose from up against the wall or floor that may have caused some sparks.
Of course electricity made life more convenient, but how did electricity make life cozier for Mr. Lowry?
Well, lighting, and if they used an electric blanket, heating, and when they got a stove and a refrigerator, things of that nature would help out. For one thing, I don't know how, well, I was grown and teaching in school up there when I first used an electric blanket, so that made life easier for me, staying warm at night. Not in so that you don't have to go to getting in wood or getting in gas, kerosene to use on the stoves or lamps. So it's convenience, for one thing.
Thank you, Mr. Lowry, for remembering when. Oh, and thanks for turning off the lights on your way out. See you next time on Remember When.
Stay tuned for our next segment on indoor plumbing.